So I want to welcome all of you again and welcome you afresh to the Adversity Bootcamp. There's never been anything like it. There's never been anything like it. And I am really very excited at the things that you and I will be learning and sharing here today. So let's get the YouTube people ready and then we'll get on started. And while we are doing that, please introduce yourself in the chat. Tell us where you are joining from and tell us what is very unique about you. One thing that is unique about you. So just tell us where you're joining from and then one thing that is unique about you. So everybody should participate. Now, I have done literally hundreds of webinars on Zoom since 2020. And I can tell you that one of the secrets of having a very, very transformational learning experience is interactivity, is engagement. So throughout this time, I'm going to be calling for engagement, and I would like you to participate very, very actively in this massive learning opportunity today. Why did we decide to do this? Because we are living in very interesting times, very, very interesting times. And, people need, I found that there is a very huge gap, both in the educational circles, in the business school circles, in the family circles. There's a very huge gap with regard to people mastering the competencies for handling adversity. And within this time, we've heard very, very sad stories of people taking their lives because they couldn't cope with the mental pressures of the financial difficulties. The cost of living has skyrocketed, not just in Nigeria, but in the United Kingdom. And I just came back from the US a couple of weeks back. It's also a problem, over there, inflation, cost of living expenses. I remember people in the US complaining that a couple of years ago, if you were earning $36,000 in a year, you could get along fairly well, but not anymore. So I thought that there's a very huge gap in the marketplace with regard to handling adversity worldwide. And so this is a very huge gap that we decided that we're going to fill tonight. And I would really like you to be present with us, to be engaged, and to get your journals ready. And at some point, we're going to be having some activities, breaking out into the rooms, and I'll coach you through certain things like, releasing your fear, your trauma, your anxiety. So let me start by introducing myself a little bit for some of you who might be joining me for the very first time. I started my early career in remote sensing and geographic information systems with Shell and so I started working with Shell, SPDC in Port Harcourt. And while I was working with Shell, Chevron made me an offer that was almost 3 times what Shell was paying me. So I didn't really pray too much. I left Shell in Port Harcourt and went to Chevron in Lagos. That was actually what took me to Lagos. 6 years working with Chevron, Shell came back and said, "We want you back." And I said to them, "Prove it." So they proved it. They gave me an offer I couldn't say no to, so I went back to Shell, to SNEPCO in Marina, Lagos. Now, while I was working for Shell the second time, I had a project in Netherlands, and something happened in Netherlands, in Holland, while I was there in Rijswijk, Shell International office, that changed my life. And if that thing hadn't happened, you wouldn't be listening to me today. So the Shell job was a very good one, still is, for many of you who know about the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. The perks were really very, very good. You were pretty much taken care of by Shell. Medicals, trips overseas with family, all kinds of things. But there was a hole inside me. Something was missing, and I couldn't tell what it was. I just found myself becoming not too keen about that work again. I came to a point that, just earning a good salary, I thought that there was much more about my life, which was part of why I asked you what was very unique about you. Because I found out that I could be much more than what I was in Shell. So I did something while I was in Holland that I would also recommend that many of you here do. So I came back one day just to try to gain some clarity. For some of you, I looked at your form. You said you want clarity. One practical way to gain clarity is to do lots of writing and to have lots of contemplation. Contemplation is a feature of my life. Sometimes I take a trip outside, just to have some time alone. So I could have three days, 7 days, just switched off, having contemplation. And so that was what happened in Holland. And I asked myself, what were 100 things that I must accomplish before I died? So I made a list of the 100 things I wanted to accomplish before I died. And then the second question was, if I remained in Shell, what were the chances in the next 10 years that I would achieve this versus if I left Shell? And I came to the conclusion, to the understanding that staying with Shell was a risk, and also leaving Shell was a risk. So I took the option, since both of them were risky, I took the option of leaving Shell. And then because I have a very strong passion for leadership, especially in Africa, to raise unicorns and leaders, who are going to lead the spiritual, the economic, the social, and political transformation of this continent. You can see that the politicians can't do it. Some of us have had so-called independence, some countries here for 60 years, for almost 70 years, but Africa is still the way it is, because I firmly believe that it is the kind of people in this room that will do it. Our politicians will not do it. So every time I'm shopping for who are these unicorns, who are these leaders that I would be invested in and who can join in transforming this continent. So I left Shell. A lot of things happened. I failed in a couple of businesses, made a lot of financial investment mistakes that we're going to be talking about at some point. And over the years, I found myself working with the Stanford University. So Stanford University Graduate School of Business, GSB, they have an initiative that they call Stanford Seed, basically shopping for high impact entrepreneurs from Asia and from Africa. And so I worked for Stanford as business advisor for a couple of years. And within this time, this job was very, very phenomenal because it allowed me to meet business owners, entrepreneurs from at least 12, 13 countries. And in fact, more than that, because eventually India joined and a couple of other countries, so I had a first-hand understanding of what's going on in many countries in the continent and in Asia, and also what was happening across varieties of industries, what was happening in the financial sector, what was happening in the agro sector, what was happening in services, in different kinds of things, because I worked with these businesses. I occasionally adjunct at the Lagos Business School and China Europe International Business School. I'm committed to raising business leaders like yourself. And one of the ways that we have to do that is to teach everyone how to deal with adversity, because a leader must learn how to deal with adversity, with a lot of maturity. And personally, I'm very curious about what makes people tick, what makes you come alive. So that's about me. That was supposed to be a nutshell, but it was not so not a shell. Okay, so today, we are going to, when I listened to a couple of you, these were the sort of things I heard. Actually, let me get this off the screen. So, okay. All right. So these were a couple of things I heard. Some of you said, I want to gain clarity. I want to see changes in my life. I want a complete reorientation. I need a guide on how to stay strong. I need help to bounce back from setback in my business. All right. So these were like a sort of representation of the things that I heard. So today, the promise is that no one who is in this room is going to leave this place exactly the same. Why? Because you're going to learn to release your trauma, your fear, and anxiety. Reason being that we can never grow past our trauma, our fears, our anxieties. We can never grow as people past our trauma until we release it, until we deal with it. We can never grow beyond our fears. And then I'm going to be sharing with you 3 core mental strengths that all of us need at this time. 3 core mental strengths that we need. I have had a share of adversity myself. I have my own large share, and I can guarantee that it's not the end of it. It's not the end of it. There are still adversities coming, and I expect them eagerly. So that mindset shift that makes me embrace adversity, you're going to get to understand why today, and why adversity is the agency that allows you to live to your full potential. And again, then I'm going to help you to create actionable adversity to opportunity blueprint. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is to understand the nature of adversity. Why do adversities come to us? What is the nature, and how do we begin to understand adversity? Because we are driven by our perspective, the way we see things. Like someone said, one of my teachers said, when you change the way you see a thing, the thing you see changes. When you change the way you see things, the things you see change. And one of the things I'm hoping to achieve with us tonight is to help us to see adversity in such a way, in such an empowering way, not as something to dread, not as something to feel like emotionally all grounded because we're going through a certain adversity, but as something to empower or something to embrace. That is, right off the bat, what I want to happen to just reshape the way that we see adversity. Adversity is not the enemy many of us have made it to be. So the first thing is, I would like all of you in the chat to complete this quote. If you have ever heard it before, complete this quote. Complete it in the chat, and then we will move on from there. So it says, except a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies. So complete it. Let me see who will get it. All right, so let me stop share and see the chat. All right, so complete it in the chat. Except a grain of wheat falls and dies. What? Okay. Woo! I didn't know everyone literally got it. It abides alone. Yes, it abides alone. Yeah. It abides alone. It will not sprout. It shall not bear. It remains alone. It remains alone. Now, do you see why I tell my fellow Nigerians? The only thing that needs to fall and die, you're not praying for the right things to fall and die. This is what you should be praying to fall and die, not your enemies. Why? So except a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it produces much grain. What does this tell you about adversity? So unless that happens, it stays by itself. And so many times when we are not being productive in our lives, many times when we are all alone, with all these issues in our head, many times why we are not seeing the result that we should see is because we refuse to die. But if it dies, it sprouts and produces much grain. What does this mean? It means that massive productivity, if you really want massive productivity, success and growth in any endeavor, whether it is your business, whether it is in your marriage relationship, whether it is in whatever, in your career, it must be preceded by death of some kind. Your old identity. So now I'm not saying that, you take a gun and shoot yourself. That's not what we're talking about. It's much, much deeper than that. See, your old identity must give way to a new one for you to experience new result. Some of you are still wearing the identity that your secondary school teacher gave you. And that was how many years ago? You were in JS3, class 3 in secondary school. And this teacher says, you are not good at math. You don't pay attention in class. You will never amount to anything. You're still carrying that identity. Now you're 35. But that identity must give way to a new one for you to have new results. You cannot solve your 40-year-old man's problem. If you are 40, you can't use the brain of a 13-year-old to solve your problem. Einstein said that you cannot solve a problem with the same level of consciousness that created it in the first place. Okay? And you can't become rich from a poor person's mindset. Meaning that if you are struggling, if you've been struggling persistently financially, for instance, for many, many years, you must give up the poverty mindset for the new identity of a rich person before you can see a new result. Remember, there's another quote which is as powerful, that you cannot put new wine in an old wineskin because you're going to ruin it. Bear this in mind. So adversity is that agency that helps that old identity to die so that a new person can emerge. So that a new person can emerge in your marriage. Some people got married and they are still keeping their identity as the bachelor that they were, as the guy who goes to hang out with his buddies every evening to drink and then have a couple of beers and drink pepper soup and then come back 11, 12 midnight the way he used to. And you're married. And some ladies are married, they are still living the identity of the unmarried life. And that is the problem, because that's what sets the counter current. You desire one thing, but your identity hasn't died. So that bachelor identity, that May 1st identity must die, because before any marriage to survive and to do well. This is the 29th year of my marriage, of our marriage. And I'm telling you this sincerely, if you can build a very, very happy home and relationship, but both of you must die to your old selves and then assume the identity of people who really want to build a healthy and happy home. and then it happens. So you must never look at suffering and adversity the same way again, because you're resisting death. You're resisting your growth. All the adversities, many people go around praying against adversities and then praying for miracle. Nothing wrong with that. But the problem is when you don't go through the lesson that adversity brings to you, it's going to be difficult for you to ascend to the next level. So I remember losing $100,000 of our savings as I was leaving Shell, and that launched us into tremendous adversity. That was $100,000 worth of education. And can you imagine if I didn't make that mistake at $100,000 level, and I'm making it sometime later at 10 million? But you see, I can't make that mistake again. And I've learned so much from the adversities. I have had quit notices. I have had, because I couldn't pay rent, to squat my family. Now it makes me a very, very different person. So I have deeper empathy. And when I see people going through certain things and going through certain conditions, I have deeper empathy. And I tell you, empathy is very powerful, even in business. So never look at suffering the same again. All right, so we're going to have a breakout room activity, and I would like everyone in the room to participate. Okay, so you're all welcome back, and I think we can start taking the insights while the rest of the rooms join us. All right, so who would like to go from group one, from room one? What did you glean from your colleagues? What did you hear that was quite striking? Who is going for room one? Just raise your hand and then we'll have you share. Is room one back? Okay, room two. Actually, let's take from any room.
Or who are those in the rooms? We don't know which room is which.
Okay, all right. So let's just take it just from whatever room you are. Okay, just raise your hand and share if you really had something that was very okay. So let's start with Ebenezer. Ebenezer, you can unmute yourself and then share with us.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ebenezer from group 11.
Okay.
We had 3 participants in our group. And please, can anyone hear me? Can you hear me still?
We can hear you, Ebenezer. You have just 30 seconds, not all the time, because
okay.
Take as many. Just go ahead.
Okay.
Don't worry about the room. Tell us.
What we got from our group is that nobody is coming to save you during adversity. You are the only person that can save yourself.
How powerful. How powerful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Lanre, you're next. Dr.
Okay,
Lanre.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, we were 3 in room 8.
Okay.
And I would only mention two situations. We had Dixon, who was actually a kidney transplant survivor.
Wow.
And he said, out of that experience, he came out a better person even before he went into it. Because during that period, there was also financial challenge. But today, he came out stronger. He's aware of his health, and is now health conscious and advising people about health situations. Then for Williams says his own adversity was when he doesn't have money, he gets into panic mode and he has worries. But over time, out of experience, he has been able to overcome worry and anxiety when he lacks finance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Fumi, you're next.
Okay, good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'll just go straight into it. So I don't know what group, but in my own group were 4 participants. We could only take from 3 people. But the general, feedback is that, adversity is actually an evolving process. It makes you see a new need, right? It makes you stronger. It makes you develop strength. It makes you resilient and patient. From it, you learn a lot of things. And we concluded also that So everything has a solution and you never give up. So at the end of the day, it makes you a stronger person. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I like that. Someone once said that every problem is figure-outable, and I like that. So that was really very powerful. Thank you, Fumi. Okay, Pastor Obi.
Okay, so in us, the summary is that adversity comes and goes. It will come and it will go. It will always go. And when managed well, you are much better and you have more capacity when it is managed very well. It doesn't come to kill you. It comes to improve you.
It's good to know.
It's not negative. It's not destructive. It didn't come to consume you.
Right.
It come to make you better.
All right. Excellent.
And it will go.
Thank you very much. So it comes and it goes. You know, but often when we are facing adversity, it just looks like, oh, this has come to stay. And that actually increases our emotional challenges. All right, Buki, very quickly. Buki, you're next. We can hear you. Unmute. All right, Taiwo, let's go.
All right, I was in room 7, and we had 5 people in my room, but only 3 people were able to speak.
Okay.
And something that was common amongst the 3 people that spoke was the starting point was identifying the cause of the adversity. For one, the cause of his adversity was impatience. He had temper issue. For one, the cause of his adversity was his parents, biological. He got his traits from his parents. And then for another one, the cause of her adversity was naive. She went into business being naive. So the starting point was identifying the cause of the adversity. And next, for the 3 people that spoke, they had to find solution. For one, he said because he wanted his marriage to work, he had to learn patience. And then he discovered that he had the best of attitude come out from him through that adversity. For the other one, he had to get new parents that could teach him, that could help him unlearn the things he learned from his biological parents and become that person he actually wanted to be. While the other one that was naive had to grow, knew that to overcome that adversity, there was a need to grow. So she started seeking knowledge.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay. Please, for the rest, could you kindly just type it in the chat? So we still have a lot to cover and we have another breakout session. So you get a chance to just type the rest in the chat, please. And I'll get a chance to read it out. Okay. So that's a very excellent juncture to start talking about the causes of adversity and suffering. So I have identified 3 major headings, 3 major causes. And I agree with the Taiwo who just shared with us that it's important to understand the root cause of adversity. Because I have been in situations where the adversity could have actually been self-inflicted, because some adversities come to us as a result of the choices that we made or the choices that we refuse to make. I have a young man right now who is so gifted, is talented, handsome, 6 foot something, really, really amazing young man. I met in the US, and he's in his mid-20s, just late 20s. He's got all the opportunity in the world to go learn a skill, but he decides to just do the minimum wage thing. This is a great time for him to go learn some skills, go to community college or to technical college and pick up a skill. He's not doing it. Now, by the time he gets to 55, it's going to be difficult, and the world would have left him behind. So sometimes the adversities are actually self-inflicted, and it's always important to connect it. Then many times it's not self-inflicted. It just comes because it has to come. Like Pastor Obi said, it comes and it goes. It's ordained to be that way. So it could be faulty spiritual foundation. It could be mental traps, and it could be being trapped in what people call the matrix. So let's take them one by one. Okay, faulty spiritual foundation. We have been reading in the papers of buildings collapsing all the time. And then the saddest thing about building collapses is that they often go with fatalities. Human lives are lost. And that is what goes on. Adversity comes when we do have faulty foundation. And then we are going to see much later that it's important to correct our foundation, to address foundational issues. I also know a man I grew up with, partially. He's a little older than me, so he should be 60 this year. Ever since I knew this young man as a child, we grew up partially together, it's been adversity upon adversity. That is like what you call penury, misery, everything, And when you look at things like that, for someone to actually, he was born in some bit of adversity as well. And then for 60 years to have it, there's something about foundation. Now, when we say spiritual in this part of the world, Africans attribute, once they say spiritual, they think about witches and wizards. That's not what being spiritual is. Part of it, but that's not what being spiritual is. Spiritual, first of all, because we are spiritual beings. This body is just a cloak. And no matter what you believe, most people have come to agree, at least, that when we die physically, that's not the end of it. In fact, when you say, you go to the doctor or you're talking with your spouse and you say, oh, my head is aching or my body feels somehow. The fact that, who is that my? My means that there's actually someone in there using that body. That's why you say my body. So we are spiritual beings, and that is the beginning. That is actually the foundation of when we talk about spirituality, because it has a lot to do with our values. It has a lot to do with our purpose. It has a lot to do with our attitudes. It has a lot to do with many things, the unseen part of life. It has a lot to do with the non-material universe, the houses, the cars, the titles, the jobs, and all that. So that is spirituality. Okay. And many people also confuse spirituality with religion. They are not the same thing. They are not the same thing. Okay. And then I don't know of any a person who captured it better, that the difference better than the prophet who said, these people worship me with their mouths, with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. That is religion. Because that's why you see someone who is religious beating up his wife, but he still go there and take communion. You see somebody, they will go do holy in church, and they come out, they pursue little girls who come to do internship in their office, even though he's MD. I went into an office a couple of years ago, and I won't give details because some of you might actually know. And I saw this MD, CEO, and a young woman on his laps in the office. He wasn't expecting me. But he is a leader in church. That is religion. But spirituality is of the heart. Worship is of the heart, in spirit and in truth. It's not by all these external rituals, that people do. So when we say spiritual foundation, I hope we clear exactly what we mean. All right, so your spiritual foundation is a structure that is holding your life together, your values, your preferences, your choices, your heart issue. Now, we remember the story that Jesus told about two people who built on two different foundations. One built on the rock and the other one built on sand. And both of them faced exactly the same thing. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house. The same thing happened to the house that was built on the rock, but the outcomes were different. All of them faced the rain, all of them faced the streams, all of them faced the winds and the beatings of life. But he said that the house that was built on sand, on the sandy foundation, fell, and he said it's with a great crash. Ladies and gentlemen, I look around me, I'm old enough, and when I see people who everyone thought made it, you know, all these politicians, all these whatever, who nobody knew their sources of income, then all of a sudden they fall with a great fall, great crash. And it's like, this guy, you know, he was the talk of town. And then all of a sudden everything comes crashing. If you know someone like that in your village, or if you know someone or you've heard about someone like that, please type in the chat to confirm. You know, so some people build. They build on fame. They build on, you know, corrupt practices. They build on bribes. They build on all kinds of things. And then all of a sudden, everything comes crashing. So faulty spiritual foundation involves poisoned identity, poisoned beliefs, traditions, culture, environment. In my own part of the world, I have been having some bit of situation with family, what they call family. Some of you from your villages, you might actually have it there. When someone dies, like recently, you know, some of you know that we recently had the funeral for my mother-in-law. And then the villagers, you know, they call themselves family. And you never know these people. You don't see them until someone dies. Or like in my place, you know, when they are marrying off somebody, family comes. And then they put so much pressure on people. So they see when it is time to bury someone, that is the opportunity for them to grab, to extract, to extort as much as they possibly can. And then why does this cause adversity for a lot of people? Because I have known cases close to me where people have had to be forced to sell their ancestral land and their inheritance to bury their father or bury their mother. So some of these foundations are terrible. Then sometimes the environment also matters a lot. I remember the years I was on television. I came out one day and I said, must everyone live in Lagos and die in Lagos? This Lagos, you know, Lagos. By the way, I don't live in Lagos, though I have half of me in Lagos and then, you know, elsewhere. And everyone goes to Lagos. Everyone stays in Lagos. And people would rather live under the bridge than, you know. So I challenged people that day. I said, look, go somewhere else. Try another city. Try somewhere else. You know, you've been in Lagos 10, 15, 20 years. It's all struggle. It's just sweat. And then I know a guy who is in his late 60s, close to 70. I was speaking with him now. He's been in Lagos for like more than 40 years of his life. Got married when he was there, raised all his children there, did everything. Now, but things weren't working out for him. And at the time I had met him, he had stroke. Life was just terrible. And then he said something to me that sent shivers. I've never forgotten. He said, Obo, all my life in Lagos can be summarized with one phrase: had I known. So now you are in your 30s. You're still struggling. In Lagos, now 3-bedroom flats, apartments are going for from 4 million to 5 million in some places. In some places, it's already like 8 million, 9 million. Do you know what you can do with 5 million naira? If you have 5 million naira and you're living in Ibadan or Benin or, all these places, there's just so much you can do with that. But you stay there, you're not earning enough. Every day you leave your house at 4 a.m., come back at 12 midnight and things like that. So sometimes the environment might actually be the constraint. One woman took me serious. She told her husband we were moving. They were moving. They had to leave Lagos because they have been there for more than 15 years, 20 years. It's one problem with the other. Landlords today, something tomorrow, and the money will come and it will go. They left and went to live somewhere at the outskirts of Abuja. This woman called me. I don't know her. It was from my TV program. She called me 1 year after and said, thank you for saying that. They had their own business, they had their own car, they were living very comfortably and things like that, but just changing environment. So you mustn't die in Lagos. Now, you can't always predict or control adversity, but you have control over your own foundation. You have control over the choices you make. So don't try to control the economy or the politicians and things like that, but you can control your own foundation, your choices, your identity, your beliefs, your culture, the place you choose to live. And I'm telling you, I don't have this conviction inside my heart. I don't know why I'm stressing this one. Many people living in Lagos should not be in Lagos. And many people who are suffering in Lagos, if they could only muster the courage and the belief to leave Lagos and try life elsewhere. Because until I did it, I didn't know that there were people who are not living in Lagos and they are making more money than people living in Lagos. And I'm going to talk about it a little later. So, someone said that ships don't sink because of the water around them. Ships sink because of the water that gets in them. And this is a spiritual question, or a question regarding your spirituality. Where is your life leaking? You've got to be able to pinpoint that. Because if you keep running around with the 40 beliefs, 40 spiritual foundation, the adversity is not going to end. It is going to continue until you address that foundation. Second one is mental traps. People suffer because they focus on what they can't control. And then some of you quarrel with me on social media when I say, I do not watch TV, I don't own TV, and I will never own one. Because people, every time they traumatize you with all this news and economy, that, this politician, that, this probe, that, this senator carried chair, hit somebody's head, useless news. I can't control those things. At least in my where I am, I can't control what the Tinubu guy is doing. I can't control Joe Biden. I can't control Putin. I can't control the Ukrainian war. I have no control over all those things. So you suffer when you focus on the things you can't control and you keep on dwelling on them. Second mental trap is when you fixate on things you don't have. Because the first thing it does is it blinds you to even the ones you have. And then it makes you a very ungrateful person. But what my family does every week, we always sit down as a family, all of us, wherever we are. We sit down to count our blessings, things that we are grateful for. And I tell you, some of you here, it might just be the practice of gratitude that will take you out of where you are right now. But you see, when you fix on the things you don't have, you don't have that, you don't have that, you don't have American visa, you don't have house, you don't have a G-Wagon, you don't have that, and you're fixating on that, you will suffer. You will suffer. Okay, the other one is societal pressures. Comparing yourself to other people is related to fixating on things you don't have. And you go to live in Lekki, even when you know your salary cannot take Lekki, but you just want to be there with the big boys and big girls. You buy things that you can't afford to impress people around you so that they will say you are also, to what purpose? Okay, then again, dwelling in the past and also even in the future. The past is gone, it's never coming back. and dwelling with it, and I'm going to emphasize this when we go through the session on releasing trauma and fear. Dwelling in the past is gone. It's going to keep you there in a place of guilt and shame and all that. And then also dwelling on the future. The future is not here. What you have is this moment. And so it's great to dream and to have imagination like I do. I do that a lot. And I have a vision board. So I go look at it and imagine those things. But then after imagining those things, I have to come back to, become aware of the moment, because that's all you got. That's all you have. So those are mental traps to avoid. Now, the third cause is being trapped in the matrix. I do not know how to pass this on to you without being called a conspiracy. What's the name that CIA invented, like sometime in the 60s or 50s, conspiracy theory. They invented all those things. Some of you know what I personally went through during the COVID. And then years later now, everybody's eyes are open. But during that time, when they banned me all over the place, they banned me on TikTok, on LinkedIn, they banned me on Facebook, banned me on Twitter, everywhere, because I was telling people, this thing is not a pandemic, it's pandemic. Was there a virus? Yes, there was a virus, but there was a whole lot of messaging and manipulation of the metrics in the whole thing. And so the thing is, if you don't wake up to the fact that things are not really, it's possible that everything that we have been told is a lie. You've got to question everything. They told us that man went to moon. They went to the moon 1969. Since that time, they've never repeated it. With better technologies and things like that. And then we believed it. And then things are popping up to show that that was actually a Hollywood thing that they shot at one desert like that. And then you look at that contraption that went to space. But we believe it. And then today we were told it's in the textbooks and things like that. So there's a matrix. Things are not always exactly what you're, like they say, the more you look, the less you see. And then this matrix is very complicated. It involves really the religious systems. These people are the same people. The religious people, politicians, the judiciary, they are all the same people. The education, the financial system. The financial system is designed in such a way that if you don't wake up to the fact that is a matrix, it's happening to lots of people, 90-something% of the people on earth. They suffer, they go through the rat race, every day they walk all their lives, and then they die. Some of us here are already like in the evenings of our lives. But we are still struggling with rent. And then some of you coming that are in your 20s and in 30s, from the way things are going now for you, in another 20 years when you're in your 50s, like some of us, you are still having these issues. Not because you're not good, not because you're not educated, not because you're not whatever, but there's a system at work, and you've got to really understand how that system works. The banking system, the financial system, the healthcare system, everything, they work. And the matrix hates readers and thinkers, because if there's anything that's going to help get you out of the matrix is to read, to think, to ask lots of questions, to question everything. The rat race is real. Don't you see men in their 70s that they are wheeling in wheelbarrow to wait in line to collect pension, and they are not paying people, they are not paying these men, our fathers and grandfathers, they are not paying them the pension. They haven't paid some of them for 5 years, for 10 years, for 12 years. But, the system is not friendly. You've got to ask questions, especially since we're talking about money. Most of you, when I asked you what you would like to, 95% of the answers was financial, was money. Many of you here, it's all money related. So you must understand that there's a matrix, and then begin to learn how to deal with it through a lot of reading, through a lot of thinking, and being in forums like this, where this sort of thing is talked about. Because you go to your social media, which is also part of the matrix, the ideas, like in Nigeria, is 90-something% all entertainment, celebrity gist. They're posting about breast, about nyash, about all these things, and the people are, consuming all this sewage. How are you going to escape the metrics? Then I go out there, I put out an idea. They can't even relate to it. They don't understand it. And then they come fighting you. There's a metrics. You've got to understand it. Now, let me just take one of the systems, that's the education system. How in the world, ladies and gentlemen, on this program, how in the world, it still baffles me, how somebody will spend the first 18 to 20-something years of his life, because many of you started school when you were 6 months. You were in creche. So by the time you were graduating, you were like 22 years, 21, 22 years. So 23 years. The first 23 years of your life, you spend being educated. Then you come out and you have been at home for 7, 8, 9, 10 years. Some of you are in your 30s, in your 40s. You've never done like a fulfilling. So some of us were blessed that we walked in such, high energy environment, where you were actually compensated relatively very, very well. But many people come out of so-called education, they are underemployed. They are still struggling. You see, graduate at 40-something years, he can't put a family together. He's not married because he just can't. And he can't function. He can't start the business. He's there waiting for someone to employ him after 20-something years. So don't you think that there's something wrong with that system as designed? And so when some of us realized so we became, like my wife and I, became very active participants in the education of our children. We didn't trust the school system to do all of it. So there's a lot you have to do, both for yourself and then for the school, for your children. And when you go to school, I'm not saying don't go to school, like many people say. Go to school, but don't go to school for the reason that people are going to school, which is to get a certificate. Go to school to learn how to think, to ask questions. Go to school to connect with people, with whom you can transform the world, because many times some really great relationships are built, especially like in business schools. That's why you go there, but not for that paper that some Nigerians have started burning. I like how Albert Einstein put it. That's actually what education is supposed to be. It's not the learning of facts, and then you give children an exam, they pass, and then they're educated. But he said it's the training of minds to think. The school system, the way it is set up right now, can't do that for you. So by the time you read these people's thoughts and the reasoning and the way they think on social media, Nigerian graduates and even Americans, it is shocking. But they have degrees. Then another person, John D. Rockefeller, now said the very opposite. He said, I don't want a nation of thinkers. I want a nation of workers. And he was very, very instrumental in designing the educational system as we know it today. And then a young man I was reading recently, he said that the American, or put Nigerian anyway, education model was copied from the 18th century Prussian model designed to create docile subjects and factory workers. So he says, assembling masses of students are the raw materials, your children, to be processed by teachers, who are the workers. Many of the teachers don't even know their left from their right. In a setting, in a centrally located school, which is a factory. I'm just saying, wake up. There is a system. Study it for yourself. Don't wait for anybody to tell you. Study it there's a system, and you've got to understand the system so that you know how to respond to it. What does the matrix do? That's part of why many of you and myself are here. The matrix is involved. It keeps you constantly afraid and traumatized. When you now open that your CNN every 30 minutes and then check the news, trauma, war, bombing, fire, conflicts, and you listen to this in 24, it is doing something to you, and it's deliberate. It creates a trauma and a fear. See, because people who are afraid and a fearful population are so easy to control because you're afraid. Look at right now. Most Nigerians are afraid. Oh, tomatoes, 3 tomatoes, 1,000 naira. And people are posting it all over on Facebook. 1 tuber of yam, 10,000 naira, 15. So fear. So it's so easy to control people who are afraid. The matrix convinces you that you are not enough. You are not enough. It keeps you a small thinker. It keeps you living paycheck to paycheck, never having enough till you die. It keeps you constantly working overtime, long hours. And as a business owner, always burnt out. And then at the end of it, you look back, past 5 years, what is it? And then for some of us business owners, at the end of the month, your thinking is not even what next, but how am I going to pay? How am I going to pay my employees? I work with many business owners, and they tell once it is 20-something, 25th of the month, 26th of the month, they can't sleep again. Okay. It promotes the hustle culture mentality that just by constantly being busy. I discovered it was during the pandemic that I discovered that you actually make more money working less. You actually make more money working less. Because now, if you are doing your true work and doing what you should actually, what you should actually be doing, you will work less. You are not going to be, you won't even work 8 hours, in the year, in the day. The matrix particularly keeps you ignoring the relationships. You are so busy, you don't have time with your family, with your wife, with your children, with your spouse. So be aware that all those things create adversity. So what should I do about all this? Assess your spiritual foundation. Number 2, discover your true identity, because most of our suffering is because we don't really know who we are. And also define what success means to you. Many of you are already successful, but because of the way you define success, you're suffering. Because you are looking at other people's definition of success and not your own. I am very successful. I don't have a private jet. I don't have a billion naira in the bank and things like that, but I'm very successful because I know what I defined what success means to me. Part of what I'm doing tonight, success, what it means to me. I defined how success means closeness to my wife. How success means raising children who make godly choices wherever they are. I define success, and the things I do, I'm not doing it because I want to be successful. I'm doing them because I am successful. The third thing to do to free yourself from all these causes of adversity is to learn about first principles thinking. We don't have time to teach first principles thinking, but you really need to question everything and start from the basic elements of things. And one of the things I personally do for myself, when I get into situations, I ask myself, how would God himself solve this problem? Remember, I'm made in his image and he lives in me. I said, how would God solve this problem? Will God start, naira is now 2,000 naira to $1. Is that what God is going to do? No way. First principles. Because first of all, even money, the way we know it, this money, paper money, is a scam. It's not, money is not wealth. Money is all these things we are talking about. Money is not even, wealth is not even tangible. Wealth is not all these cars and houses and all these flashy things people are doing. When you really go down to first principles, because for the first couple of thousands of years or hundreds of years, man didn't use money, but they had everything. First principles. Okay. So we will not do this in the breakout room. So I would like you to type in the chat and then really everybody. So we're taking a pause right now, an inflection pause. I want you to type in the chat so far, what has been an aha moment for you? So it could be the things you heard in your breakout room. It could be the things that we've been talking about. So type in the chat. What has been so far at this point an aha moment for you? Okay. What has popped up strongly in your awareness? All right, please type in the chat. let's take that break, engagement break. Yeah, and I'm going to read it out. Okay, the matrix convinces you that you are not enough. Yeah, okay, says Nena. All right. Yeah, Dr. Jamila says the matrix. Yep. Yeah. Don't live your life on a scam. Think. Yep, the matrix. Okay, good. Practical teaching, not theory. Okay, the fear I feel was deliberately planted in me. Absolutely, Jide. See, because once you are afraid, you are easy to control. Very, very easy to control. Okay, the trauma caused by TV manipulation. Yeah, okay. Learn to question everything. Yeah, definition about success. Very good. Okay, the matrix convinces you that you're not enough. Absolutely. Rat race. You must be deliberate in coming out of a rat race because it is you're programmed to be like that. You're programmed. You know, when the Nigerian Labor, is it Labor Congress or something? You know, whatever. You know, I don't participate and I don't hear those things. Sorry. When they did their strike, I was just imagining. Okay, so people saying, okay, raise our minimum wage from 30,000 naira a month to 60,000 naira. And I was just musing, see, because when you extract yourself from the metrics, you begin to see things that don't quite appear apparent to people who don't do deep contemplation. And I'm like, look, can't people see? The people setting these things for you are not under the same minimum wage system. The people setting it for you. So what's the difference? They are not under the same thing. So how don't you get yourself out of that situation where you never even need to have a conversation around minimum wage? Who invented the minimum wage? It's all part of the metrics. Why is it called a minimum wage? And people don't even understand it, you know. So when I say it, you know, people take offense and all that. But why would you settle for minimum wage? When was it invented? There was no minimum wage in the times even just like 500 years ago. When I was looking at that minimum age something, people started this thing. There was nothing like retirement until just less than 200 years ago. The retirement at 60, 65. Somebody created all those things. Question everything. Now, because somebody has created 65 retirement age, when you are now 60, you start winding down. You start winding down mentally. And then 65, you're going around and say, oh, I'm retired. You become a senior citizen. You're no longer thinking. And that's actually the time. Come to think about it, that you've built all the knowledge, wisdom, experience that you should actually begin to give back to the world. You go, I'm retired. Who created it? Who created that retirement? Who said that you should retire at 60? And so people are mentally programmed that once they are 60, they start shutting down and their body, their biology starts shutting down. When actually, that's when, okay, awareness, okay, I need to define what success means to me. Very good. Success should be defined. Excellent. Why should I believe in hustling? Absolutely. Bother less about things I can't control. Awesome. Very, very good. Okay. So thank you for that engagement. So let's proceed to the next part of the next exciting part of it. Okay. So here we're talking about releasing trauma. Please, my friends, I beg of you. Okay, thank you. So I beg of you, please do not carry any trauma you came into this Zoom room with back to you tonight for nothing else. Okay. So many of us here, and please, you can feel free to type in the chat. It's a very safe place. Type in the chat. Many of us here have experienced all kinds of trauma. Co-host, please, could you mute everybody? All right. So many of us have experienced all kinds of trauma. For some of us, the trauma came from toxic parenting. Toxic parenting. I often wonder, in fact, we once helped a young girl who was so traumatized by her parents that she was actually asking them, are you truly my parents? So some of us were traumatized by the kind of parenting We were not cared for. We were literally hated. Some are traumatized in marriage, domestic violence, lack of kindness between both people. Some, and which I think is probably the saddest, sexual assault. It happens to boys, it also happens to girls, but probably more to the girls. But I do have a friend, who in our university, they told this story. He was 10 years at the time, and then the house girl he didn't know what it was all about, so the house girl, when the parents were not around, so she removed her clothes, and then she would carry him and put on top of him. And he thought it was a play. He didn't really realize that until he grew up and realized that was sexual assault. But this one, taking a young woman's virtue, it's horror. And I can only imagine how it feels. I can only imagine. So I can't speak for people who actually face that. But it's got to be released. It's got to go, let go. You've got to let it go. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Sometimes the trauma could come in as a health situation. It could be personal. It could be bereavement. I had a lot of, traumatic bereavement. It could be workplace. It could be financial. It could be anything. So whatever that trauma is, identify that. And then if you feel courageous enough to just mention it in the chat, just like a word, what your trauma was. You can just say parenting, you could say relationship, you could say workplace, you could say money, you could say health and accidents, whatever it is, just mention it in the chat. Sometimes, this trauma and then bad habits, just trauma like bad habits, thrive in secrecy sometimes, just not letting it go, because it becomes you've made it such an integral part of you. So you see, when people like Oprah or people like Joyce Meyer come out openly and they talk about the abuses that they sustained from even family members. I think Joyce Meyer's son was even her father sexually abused her. Now she tells her story from a place of empowerment, because you could see that she's been released and she's blossomed and done extremely well. That woman has influenced billions of people in the world because she released herself from her trauma. Oprah Winfrey has helped billions of people in the world because she released herself from that trauma. So even sexual abuse, trauma, can be released. And then I'm sure many of you have heard stories like that of people who now come out from a place of empowerment to talk about it. Sometimes, women who are like 30, 35 years, now married, 40 years, they never talked about it, but it's still there, and then all of a sudden they get released and then they come out, and they speak about this thing so powerfully because they have released themselves from it. Okay, so mention it in the chat. I was traumatized. My father passed on in 2001, and then 6 years later, my mother. Those were very traumatic, but none of those, or two of them combined, was like my younger brother's death 2 years ago. He took me to the airport. And I hugged him and we said goodbye. He drove me to the airport at Enugu. And then I flew to Ghana for an event. Exactly 1 week later, I was in the middle of having lunch when I got a call from the hospital from my other younger brothers. And they said, Nwanne was gone. I just felt like dying right there. It was horrible. It was traumatic. I just felt like, okay, this is it, Why should he die before me? Why should, somebody? And then we had no chance, to talk more, to whatever. It was traumatic. And I know some of you here, have also been bereaved in such a way. But you see, I release that trauma, and that's what I'm sharing with you, because eventually, because I release that trauma, eventually, because I released that trauma, his funeral was like anything that many people who were there ever attended, because it was one of joy, of laughter. And so people were like, are these people crazy? Because we were just there, just, giving gratitude, praising, singing, and things like that. And that's what happens, when you heal from trauma. When you heal from trauma, your heart begins to sing. When you release trauma, you become like a butterfly that is emerging from its cocoon. So you're going to release your trauma. So part of how this trauma was released was very deep contemplation. And then God does speak to us. And tonight, if you actually ask him to speak to you, he will. He does speak to us because he speaks to me. So I remember that day, one day, so I was inside and said, Lord, I can't make sense out of this thing. I just can't make sense, out of it. Then he said to me from the deepest intuitive part of my heart, he said, the person who dies at 40 did not have less time than the person who dies at 90. And the person who died at 90, who dies at 90, did not have more time than the person who died at 40. I'm not sure, you see, because you can only hear that sort of thing from God. It could only be, so, so he said, the person who died at 40 did not have less time than the person who dies at 90. And the person who died at 90 did not have more time. You see, because we human beings, we measure in time, but God measures in eternity. And it is possible for a 13-year-old to fulfill their purpose here, and then for a 90-year-old to not do anything. There were so many things like that, but it was just very, very deep. And I released it, and a lot of other things that happened. So you got to release trauma, no matter what it is. Some of you lost your husband many years ago. I'm working with a woman who that happened to. You've got to release that trauma and let it go. And the interesting thing is, if they die in God, they are alive. They are not dead. I've had incredible experiences, with my younger brother since he passed and all that. So he's alive. I'm going to see him again. Now you need to release trauma because it amplifies your adversity and fear. And then we hardly make progress with unresolved trauma. All right, so let's go through the process right now. So I just like you to find a very quiet place. If you want to close your eyes, you can close your eyes, just where you are, and then find that very quiet place within your heart. Just quieten your mind, quieten your heart. So I want you to bring to your mind that trauma. Feel free to feel the emotions, just like I did, for my younger brother's death. Perhaps it was parenting. Perhaps it was sexual assault. Perhaps it was your boss in the office, who victimized you and then you lost the job. Perhaps somebody stole all your money or your business money and ran away, went abroad to live, left you there. And whatever it is, just think about it. right now. Find yourself in that place. Name it. Okay? So acknowledge it. It's okay to feel the hurt. It's okay to feel the way you have felt. Feel those emotions. It's okay to feel the hurt. It's okay to feel the way this has treated you for the past 1 year, some of us for the past 20 years, some for the past 30 years, some for the past 5. Okay, so now the next thing I want you to do is to think about the fact that you are not your trauma. And say that quietly to yourself. Yeah. Say to that trauma, yes, this happened to me. This bereavement happened to me. This sexual assault happened to me. I didn't cause it, but I am not my trauma. Call it by name. I am not my trauma. I'm not this. It's separate from me. It is not my identity. Okay, so process this trauma. Say, yes, this happened to me, but this is not who I am. I am not this. And then part of the process of your releasing it might involve forgiveness. Name the person involved. Name the situation involved. Forgive the person if somebody is involved in your trauma. Could be your parents, could be your boss. Forgive them. Now, forgiving does not necessarily mean that you're going to feel good about the person, but just say it out. This person, I forgive you. And then I want you to say to yourself, I am letting go of this trauma at this time. I'm letting go. I am letting go from this moment. I also want you to forgive yourself. Say it out. I forgive myself and I forgive, whoever is supposed to, because the hook of trauma is bitterness and lack of forgiveness. That is the hook. That is the foot in the door that trauma still has over you. So release it, let it go. Just say to yourself, I am not this trauma. Okay? Then the next thing I want you to do, so I want you to picture yourself now empowered. See this trauma like an old garment that you just removed and then you put it on the floor. And you're wearing a brilliant new identity, an empowered person. You're looking down on this trauma, this rag, these old clothes. That was a trauma you wore all these 10 years, all these 15 years. And then look at yourself now as a very empowered person. Take a deep breath and say, thank you. Say, thank you, Father. Just thank you, Father. Okay, so release it. And then say, from today onwards, I will not put on these clothes again. I will not put on this trauma again. And I'm going to be speaking about what happened to me in an empowered way, so that I will also help others to heal from the trauma. Okay, so let's come back together. Who felt anything? Who felt any shift? Raise your hands. Raise your hands. Feel empowered. Who felt any shift through this very simple exercise? Okay. Okay. Chiazakam, yes. Describe your experience. Where this has placed you.
Good evening, Uncle Omo. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, so before I joined the class, I was feeling very, very bad. It was before I joined that I actually had to start going through things that I'm grateful for. Because I was feeling very down before I joined. And I'm actually glad that we had this session because it has made me realize that I am not my trauma.
Fantastic. Yep.
I am more than what
Yes.
it makes me feel. So I'm putting it behind me.
Fantastic. Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. If there was anything, there was nothing much more powerful for me than realizing that I am not my trauma. I am not my experience. That trauma is like an old rag. Good thing is I'm the one putting it on, and I'm also the one who can remove it, and I can speak to it in a very, very empowered way. So thank you very much for sharing that. Okay. I have a few more in the chat, and then some people say, okay, they feel peace. Okay, they felt calmer. And then Ebenezer says, I felt lighter. Very, very good. Excellent. Excellent. Nobody should carry their trauma out of this place. Okay, so let's go through the last part of our time today. So I want to talk about identity, because this is really very important. And then in recent times, my family has discovered a man who has been very, very helpful, as one of our teachers. And he talks a lot about the process to understand our identity and how powerful identity is. So now you came into the world fully capitalized, fully resourced. You came into the world, believe it or not, as hard as it might be to believe.
I'll get my command.
As hard as it might be to believe, you came fully funded. And that's one of the most important points I make in my second book, The Financial Freedom for Every Busy Professional. And I would really like you to install this fundamental belief in your head. I know that we as Black people have faced a lot of psychological traumatization, from slavery to colonialism and white supremacy and things like that. So today, we've allowed that thing to get into us. And then the average Black person thinks that, we don't have enough and that we were born at a disadvantage. It's not true. Everyone came into the world fully resourced. Now, and this is why it's critical to live our identity. If you look at birds do not struggle to do what birds do. We are called human beings, not human doings. But I bet you many of us, sometimes including me, we spend 90-something% of our days just doing and forgetting that being is important, because it's from who we are that we can do our best work. Okay, so a bird doesn't struggle to fly, it just flies. A fish doesn't struggle to swim, it just swims, because that is its identity. It came packaged with everything. And you can imagine, like Jesus would say, if ordinary bird came fully packaged, how much more you? And then 86 billion brain cells. My goodness. Can you imagine if you put just a fraction of that? It's like having 86 billion employees working for you. So your brain cells are 10 times more than the population of the world. You came fully funded. So you must understand your identity, because the only thing called work is the work that is true to your identity. Like what I'm doing, I bring my identity into it. And then looking back, like when I actually figured out my identity, I have looked back right from the time I was in primary school, in secondary school, in the university, through the places I've worked in Shell, in Chevron, in Stanford, everywhere. I've been literally doing the same thing. I just bring that identity into that. So your work is not your job. So I also want you to understand that your blessings are tied exclusively to your identity. But you see, if we spend our lives in false identities, then we don't experience provision. And that is the origin of the financial adversity. You are not where you should be. So you can imagine, you came fully funded, and the funding, the capitalization of your life here for your purpose here is attached to this particular identity. It's there. But then you separate yourself from that identity because you're trying to be something else and other people and other things that the society defined for you. The provision is still there, but you're not having it here because you're a different identity. Therefore, to get that your identity, to be fully funded, to experience abundance, you've got to go back to that identity. Look, if this is making sense, please just type in there, because this was profound for me. Just type in the chat if this is making sense to you. This is your identity and this is your provision. They are tied together. But then if you leave your identity and stray because you are getting involved in other people's drama, you're getting involved in the world's definition of success and you forget the provision is still here, but you've strayed as an identity. And then to experience provision, you've got to come there. I'm telling you, I am not a billionaire, but I don't lack anything. Like everywhere, I don't lack anything. Where I am right now, sometimes I have 1, 2, 3 families, 3 different families cooking to bring food, to me at the same time. So much. So at some point I said, God, this food. So people are complaining that there's no food. I am actually complaining that there's too much food. When I need to move around, I move around. So the provision is there. You need to remain true to your identity. You need to, first of all, even discover your identity. See, now, you're living other people's dreams. You're duplicating other people's methods. And you're wondering why nothing is working for you. Because you're not living your identity. If a bird, can you imagine what will happen if a bird tries to go and live in the sea? Just imagine it. Or if a fish tries to go and live in the forest. And that is what's happening to many of us. That is adversity for the bird. How is it going to survive? It doesn't have the equipment, the resources to survive inside the ocean. The same thing with you. So, how do you find your true identity? Is to, first of all, renounce what you are not. You are not the expectations of other people, not even of your parents, or of your husband, of your wife, much more the society, of your neighbors. Sometimes people come to social media and then they are giving me expectations. Oh, I don't expect you to post this because you're a coach. I don't expect you. You have thousands of followers. I'm not your expectation. Okay, you are not what you do, because you're not a human doing. Because you ask people sometimes, who are you? And they say, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm an engineer. That's what you do. That's not who you are. You are not your job title. I'm CEO. I'm the MD of this. Because see, the problem is when you claim all these things or what you own, you know, when I got a car, when I got an SUV, a brand new Nissan Armada, you know, the villagers will be describing him as the man who has that car. Often you hear around us say, oh, the man who lives in that house, the man who owns that motorcycle. So the problem with that is when that thing, you know, of the problem of, we call it object orientation. You know, some people derive their identity from what they do or from their job title. So what happens when you are no longer commissioner for that? What happens to them? Their identity crashes, collapses. You know, and I meet these policemen every day on the road. You see, they are holding gun and their uniform and police, or God, park here, or God, this and that and that. You know, and I'm just looking at them. Their whole identity is the gun they are carrying and the uniform. So what happens when they dismiss you? So you are not what you own. You're not your job title. You are not your relationship status. Social media just woke up and invented that relationship status, married. So now they are using it to shame women who are 40-something and they are single. You are not your relationship status. You are not the woman who is unmarried at 45. That's not your identity. You are not a divorcee. That's not your identity. You are not your nationality. I thank God. Because I'm not Nigerian. I'm not Nigerian. Somebody just created that thing, 1914, and called it Nigeria. But what was I before that? Before 1914, what were my father and grandfather before that time? So I'm not Nigerian. I'm not my nationality. Green passport. You are not people's opinion of you. I'm not people's opinion of. I can't control your opinion of me. So 1,000 people will have 1,000 different opinions of me, and I'm none of those. You are not your religion. You are not your religion. You are not your past mistakes. And best of all, you are not a finished product. Thank God. So don't look at you today and say, is this all? You're not finished. Like I keep saying, keep showing up, because you just never know what's there. You're not a finished. So if you look at me today and think I'm a finished product, you just wait and see. The next 2 weeks, the next 2 years, the next 20 years. So I'm not none of those things. So who are you? That's a very important thing. That's a very important question I would like you to sleep with today. Ask, who really are you? So at some point, because of how important this is, we're going to take a session during the financial fitness class, which I'm going to announce, the next financial fitness challenge. I think we can take a session. If this is something of interest, you can say interested there. To go through a session, it's a full, like a 2-hour session or something, to take you through the path of discovering who you are. Because when you know your identity, you will stop comparing yourself with other people. You stop bothering about the things happening to you. Nothing happening around you will be strange. Nothing. Look, like even if I die now, you know, I talk about it, you know, so freely. I'm expecting to live until I'm 130 something. That's my whatever. But it makes no difference to me if I go tomorrow. No difference, because I know my identity, and because I'm living my identity. So if a bird dies today, it dies a bird. It's not going to die a snake. So it doesn't matter because I'm doing what I was created to do. Over there, I'm going to be doing the same thing because it's my identity. So let's look at the 3 core mental strengths, right? So I'll breeze through this one, but you're going to have access to the video and also to the slides. I'm going to give that to you so you can also review at your own leisure. There are also worksheets that I'm creating to help you to implement all the things that we're talking about when you sit by yourself. So the 3 core mental strengths are self-awareness, resilience, and adaptability. So everybody remember this, don't forget. okay? In adversity, these are 3 core mental strengths. You need to be aware of what's happening in your head at any particular time. So let's take them one by one. Self-awareness, your ability to understand your own thoughts. See, because many of the things happening that you're feeling are things happening in your head. Because it's your thoughts that generate feelings, and then it's your feelings that move you to action. So you need to be aware. So it's called metacognition. So you need to be aware, the thinking behind your thinking, how you think, what your motivations and weaknesses and strengths are. All right. So we also have a worksheet for you to do your personal SWOT. That's an exercise that helped me a lot to understand who I am. Okay. Now, resilience, the second one, is your ability to bounce back from challenges. My goodness. I met a man, who recently turned 70. You meet him today, he's still talking about how he was badly treated at work. And when he relieves and talks about these things, and he never recovered from it. He was, that's the same sort of thing I was talking about, of people who take their identity from their job title. So this guy was crushed. He was, either set up or something, and then pursued from that work. And that's like getting to like 30-something, 40 years now. He's never bounced back. So resilience is something, you should be so resilient that if they bounce you on the ground, you don't shatter. You actually just bounce back, okay, from challenges. That's resilience. The mental fortitude to persevere through difficult times and then to emerge stronger. I'm not, my heart is too soft for boxing, but a couple of times I've had to watch it. It is something because I don't like watching. I don't like seeing people just hitting, and they call it sports, something. But the times I've watched boxing, I marvel at those people, because there was one that kept on coming to my feed, Ben Whitaker. He's a very, very entertaining boxer. So he kept showing up in my TikTok feed and all that. So sometimes, when I watch and I see the punch and punch these guys, the real punch, and these are professional punches, and they fall, and then they get up again. Resilience. So when adversity comes, like Solomon said, if your strength is small, if how did he put it, in the day of adversity or something, if you can't stand in the day of your adversity, your strength is very small. You've got to be able to bounce back. And
if you fail in the day of adversity,
your strength is small, okay? So resilience is what keeps you, all right? I shared with us in the previous webinar, and Williams, if you have it, the webinar on debt, how I recovered from, after I quit Shell, I lost that money and I was owing over 40 million. I couldn't pay rent. I couldn't do all those things. And then, and here we are, I've not arrived, but I'm blessed. But that thing could have killed me, because I know people who owed just very tiny amount of money, and they were killing themselves. I had to save one young man because he was reading my material on Facebook, and then he had prepared to kill himself. When he read something I wrote, he said, "Okay, let him give," and he went and binged. He was binging on my content, because when he now called me, he was now regurgitating all the things I've been writing. So he was actually binging on my content. He said that was the only thing that kept him from killing himself. He had bought all the things he wanted to use to do it. So I said, "Okay, why do you want to kill yourself?" He was owing a certain bank, and then the interest kept on. I asked him the amount of money. I couldn't remember how much he said, but I just laughed, because, so resilience, no matter how bad it is, don't hurt yourself. Be resilient. Like one group said, it comes and it goes. It's not going to be there forever. Financial resilience, okay, same thing. Adaptability, the capacity to adjust how you think and your strategies in responding to changing circumstances. Adaptability is so important in adversity. I never heard in my life until this year that people use cucumber to make stew, rice stew. Nobody, and You know, my wife told me the other day that she also tried it, and she also said, and that thing was really nice. Adaptability, because tomatoes have gone way up there. You've got to adapt. So being flexible and resourceful in the face of the unexpected. So you can't be living like right now in 2024, the way you lived 4 years ago when you had so much money and you were earning dollars. You can't live that way. You've got to adapt. Same thing in business. So finally, we talked about how do you transform adversity to opportunity? So this is important because this is where we begin to put everything we've been talking about together, because you don't want to just remain in adversity. You want to transmute it. You want to transform it into opportunity. And of course, releasing trauma is a very, very important part of that process already, because now you're looking at your situation from a place of strength and power, not from a place of weakness and failure. So to bounce back from business failure, you do a postmortem. What went wrong? Why did the business fail? Because the truth is, many of us who failed in business, we are not very, what's the word? We are not being very truthful to that business, because we say the business failed. But many times it's not the business that failed. We are the ones who failed. I hope you get the point. It's really different. Businesses don't just fail. So find out why it failed. Just make sure that you ask yourself, what did I learn from my business failure? So it could be related to the systems that you had, the structures you had. It could be related to your lack of skills in managing people. So they stole your inventory and then they crashed the business. It could be all kinds of things. But you've got to do a postmortem so that you will carry the lessons into your next venture and not repeat this. Because some people, like someone said, sometimes people say, oh, I've been in this business for 20 years. But it's not really that they've been in business for 20 years. They have done the same thing. They've done the same thing that they've done 20 times. The same thing they did year one, that they just repeated it 20 times. And it's a very big difference. To bounce back, the next thing is to pivot. Okay, what new opportunity should I pursue right now? It's a very, very important question. And then there are two models. If you have capital, which for many people who fail in business, capital is usually like the core problem, funding. But if you still have capital, buy and sell. Okay, that's what my mentor taught me, 84-year-old mentor. If you don't have money, sell and buy. That's what I did when I started. I didn't start with money. And people will tell you, oh, motivational speaker. I'm not a motivational speaker, but when I speak, people get motivated. So when everything failed, collapsed, and then in 2009, I didn't have money to start anything, but I sold a team building event to MultiChoice at that time, and it came up to an equivalent of $15,000. That was a lot of money for me then, and it still is today. And I did this event, for them, and they paid me upfront, and I did the event for them. So if you don't have capital, it's not an excuse. Sell something, then build it. Okay. Coming out of debt, I'm not going to dwell here. Looking at our time, I'm not going to dwell here, but we already have a full session, which is also very, very free, is there on YouTube, that gives you a step-by-step process on how to come out of debt based on the things that I did. One of the things I did was I wrote all my debt out, the debt I was owing to 4 different financial institutions, 3 banks, and then 1 asset management company. I wrote out all those debts. I put Psalm 23 on top of it, and I pasted it right there in front of my, in the bedroom. So when I woke up, I saw it, and I put my hand and I spoke to those debts. So when you use this template, you will see all those examples. There is also a blueprint that I'm going to give you for free. I'm going to tell you how to get it in a moment. For those of you who say that you have bad debt and then you want to come out of it. So I've created a process based on what I went through that will help you to come out of debt. Okay, how do you scale your business in hard times? Because somebody asked, manage your costs very, very well. That's really the very first thing. But often avoid spending money where you should be saving money, because I have worked with so many businesses. Whenever businesses get into hard times, the very first place that they cut costs is coaching and training of their people. And that's actually where you should amplify costs, because you need the coaches, you need the trainers to help your people to process these things. But that's usually where they take off. And then some companies cut down on marketing. How can you cut down on the source of oxygen, for your business? Okay. Then to scale your business in hard times, pursue opportunity, not passion. The reason I'm saying this is that I think it's somewhere here. The reason I'm saying this is what you are doing right now might not really be the opportunity you should be working on right now. But you say, okay, I built this business. I've been doing this business 15, 20 years. Who told you that you must die doing that business? I have to come to that realization myself, because I've started pursuing opportunity. No longer, it's my passion to do like what I'm doing tonight. So once in a while I do it. But I'm actually pursuing opportunity in agriculture, and I'm learning, having people coach me and things like that. I'm pursuing opportunity in agriculture and commodity trading, because I found that the guys who are here trading palm oil, like I met one of them. He buys palm oil he buys the container from the north, Sokoto, Jos, or Kano. He fills it with palm oil here and he sells in Maiduguri. And the guy is making 10 times more money than I'm making in coaching. There are people who are making 100 times more money than I'm making in coaching, doing palm oil. So yours truly has started saying palm oil. That's what I'm saying. Pursue opportunity, not passion, in hard times. When Samsung did not start with electronics and all. Samsung started as a grocery store selling noodles. They started business with noodles. So nobody said that what your business is doing right now, you're in fintech, you're in technology, you're in this, that's what you must die with. Open your mind. That's why first principles thinking is important. Okay? Strategize on the top 3 metrics: customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, and cash flow. The moment any of those things fail, your business starts sliding. Okay? Pay for coaching, pay for mentorship, pay for mastermind, because one good idea from your mastermind or from mentorship is enough to solve all your financial problems at this time. Just one good idea. So beware of creating products that no one wants. Okay, so if you're in that business, I've been doing it for 20, we've been doing it for 30 years and things like that. But who wants it right now? Because if you are not in a lucrative market or a lucrative industry, there's no amount of hard work or no amount of coaching. Don't even come for coaching, because no amount of coaching or hard work will save you if you're not in a lucrative market. So it's important to actually find out what's the lucrative market. This is the template for finding that, but we don't have time to go through this. I'm going to give you this and also prepare a blueprint that you can use with your management team to sit down and ask yourself, are we in the right opportunity, or what's the right opportunity for us to pursue at this time? Because what you need is a level 10 opportunity. Okay, a level 10 opportunity. Is the market stable? Is it large? Is it identifiable? Is it distinctive? Is it expansive? Is the market where you want to operate? Is it responsive? These are very important prompts. Okay, so last idea I want to share with us. I'm really very excited to share this. I reserved the best for the last. So there's something I have come to call economic Sabbath. And where I got this, so economic Sabbath, coming to, you might also call it financial peace, financial rest, and things like that. So I coined this term from the verse that tells us that on the seventh day, God completed his work and he rested on the seventh day. So the question I ask many clients, and I ask myself, if you were to go on compulsory sick leave for 12 months, would this business still be here in 12 months' time? So when I do this for myself, the answer is no. And so it exposes the vulnerability in my business model. So I am personally taking the question of economic Sabbath very, very important. I'm going to talk about what it is. And then for you, maybe you don't own a business, you work. If you stopped working today, do you have a financial system that can sustain you and your family for 1 year if you don't have to work for 1 year? Okay, my wife and I and the children a couple of years ago were vacationing in New York, actually in New Rochelle. At that time was when Trump was building Trump Tower in New Rochelle at about the same time we were holidaying there. And we met this incredible Nigerian couple. And for some of you who've read The Financial Freedom for Every Youth, my book, I actually tell that story in the first chapter. And we were just amazed. So we were having breakfast, we were staying in Marriott, okay? And then, so they gave breakfast every morning and we met this couple and they turned out to be Nigerians. Oh, nice to meet you. When did you people come here? They said, okay, we came from, I don't remember the particular countries, but it's in my book. Oh, we came from Dubai. Oh, okay. So you left Nigeria? No. We were in Australia. We went from Australia to Dubai. Oh, really? Okay. And then, okay, no, before then we were in Germany. When are you going back to Lagos? They said, no, from here we're going to the Caribbean. And so this man and his wife have been traveling, for months. They've never gone home. And they were really, you could see them very, very comfortable, and I really wanted to know more. That is what we call economic Sabbath. If you don't work for 1 year, can you take your wife and your children, to Ghana, from Ghana to Liberia, from Liberia to Paris, to Germany and all that? Can you do that? So God has a secret. When God created, he created a system. He created systems. And he has never had to create one more thing again because he made systems and processes. That showed me a lot because when I was preparing this for this evening, and I came by this realization, I decided I was going to pursue economic Sabbath, myself. So God has never had to create one more thing. He rested. So don't build businesses, build systems. Don't consume your salary and bonuses, convert them to systems, okay? Because the only work, the way I've come to define work, the only work you will ever do is to build your economic systems, okay? And then there are 3 steps to do that. So I've talked about find a level 10 opportunity. And then how do you rephrase adversity to opportunity? First of all, reframe and release. Inventory your assets, identify the first step and take action. Okay, so I'm going to leave these slides with you, but basically here, we are talking about let go of the trauma and the negative thoughts that you're associating with the adversity, okay, and then look for potential opportunities there. Take a stock of all the things, your resources, your knowledge, your skills, your financial, because there's always a place to begin. Okay? There's always a place to begin. Once you take inventory of your resources, your assets, your gifts, your relationship, network of relationships, you are going to find a place to begin. So find that actionable step. Do what you can with what you have, where you are. Start small. It's okay. Don't be afraid to start small in adversity, because it grows before you know it. Of course, leverage your network of relationships, okay? So you're going to have these slides. I know we didn't have time to delve on it, but I'm sure you've already gotten some very, very deep value that you're going to start working on from this weekend, okay? Part of it, and we're going to take this during the financial fitness challenge, because one of the biggest problems, people have is determining what to sell, because the thesis is in adversity, especially in financial adversity. You can sell yourself out of financial adversity. Selling is critical. You have to stop forming graduate. I'm a graduate. I'm a CEO. I'm a this. You've got to sell. You can sell yourself out of any financial situation. And one way to help yourself do that is just to turn your experience into a product or service, okay? What problem have you solved in your own life that you can help others with? What product have you used, for instance, to solve your own skincare problem? Maybe that you even mixed your own. That is a product, because chances are there are 1 million, 10 million people in exactly that situation that you found yourself at, and then you can create a product to help them. Okay, so we don't have, I'm looking at our time, we don't have the time to do this, but this is an exercise I would like you to do with somebody, your spouse, your group of friends, and things like that. So sit around, because it's very powerful when you do it in a group. What problem have you solved in your own life that you can turn into a service, to help others? Okay, so the action to round it off all up: what money-making activity can you do 1 hour every day for the next 30 days to improve your financial situation? This is so digestible, so easy to do. Because when I did this exercise, I asked myself, what would it look like if I spend 1 hour prospecting every day? For some of you, it might be, what would it look like if you spend 1 hour creating powerful content that increases the visibility of your business? And then every day you say, okay, I'm going to post once on LinkedIn every single day. I'm going to post once on Instagram or wherever your audience is. It is that consistency, that repetition, that makes it really very powerful. Okay. All right. So I want to now offer, you're going to get all these slides, but I want to quickly offer my 84-year-old mentor. Same guy said, no one can get rich except another man or woman shows him how. Very, very true. And so it is in that spirit that we are offering the Financial Fitness Challenge. Again, the next one is coming up on 27th to 31st August. The last one we had in May, we had 72 people. And then they have a community there where they're keeping themselves accountable. So the very next one is coming 27th to 31st. It's 5 days. What usually happens in the video, in the morning, I give you a lecture on a particular subject, and I give you worksheets that help you to implement. Then in the evening, we have a 2 to 3 hour plenary where we dive into those things, because that's one way to make it very, very implementable. And because it is virtual, you can join from anywhere in the world. You can see what you've gotten in 2 hours. But this time, you're going to be with me for 5 good days. Okay? So this is what you're going to get. You're going to deal with your internal mappings of fear, procrastination, self-doubt, and limiting beliefs that have kept you financially stagnant. Okay? And then 2 of the most perplexing money questions that people always ask everywhere. If you go online and search, You see, what should I invest in? Because see, the whole place is overwhelming. Now people talk about crypto, they talk about Forex, they talk about all kinds of things, coming up. And that word invest is one of the most abused words, in social media today. But here we really spend the evenings talking about what do I invest in? What business should I do? What opportunity should I pursue? Okay. You get a chance to add a lucrative stream of income to your portfolio. Then one of the most exciting days for me is the day that we normally talk about every day morning, because the power of 5,000 naira a day, I set up mine, and then every day somebody buys an ebook when I'm sleeping and I wake up, there's a 5,000 naira. These things are very helpful because my generator, which I'm using right there now, uses diesel. Diesel is 1,250 naira. I had bought diesel up to 1,600 naira a liter. These things help a lot, this everyday money. All right, so we will talk about how to set it up because you need cash flow to deal with your financial challenges. For business owners, we talk about funding strategies. Okay, and then, above all, you get a chance to work with me one-on-one. So please save the date right now, 27th to 31st August. Write it down for the Financial Fitness Challenge. You're going to be hearing more about it. But this night, I want to offer you a chance to enroll this night. In fact, to enroll in the next 24 hours. These bonuses are already there. One of them is the debt-wise implementation guide. Okay, so if you're in debt, all right, how to come out of debt. It gives you a checklist of things that you need to do. The Financial Freedom for Every Youth, my very first book that Pat Utomi forwarded, very, very powerful, is 3,000 naira. 28 reasons, especially if you're a business owner, why the banks won't lend you money. Because if you know this, it can help you to solve your lack of capital problems. Those ones, as you're paying right now, they are available. How much is it? Just 30,500 naira, okay? 30,500 naira. And in a moment, I'm going to show you the account that you're going to pay. This is what you get for 5 days of a financial fitness challenge with me, taking the whole spectrum, of your financial life. And the reason you want to take action right now, so you can pay either to UBA or to this account in First Bank. And Williams, you can also put it in the chat. And the reason you want to do that is that I'm doing something crazy. I've never done this. I've never done this. Okay, so I'm going to keep these bonuses for just 2 days. This is the how to invest in the Nigerian stock market. Some of you here already bought it for 5,070 naira. And in fact, today, I just got a testimonial. It's not the first of people, because many people do not understand the power of the stock market.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ogbo. Please confirm I'm clear enough.
Yes.
Fantastic. So this session started with you telling us or enlightening us on the matrix. That set me into a panic. Then you also showed us how to cope and, work our way through these adversities. And that's really, truly helped, and it's real. Now, coming to this program that you have informed us about, I believe it's going to be a week long, as you mentioned, but it's going to be working days and all that. How do you recommend? Do we take days off our regular jobs, or the program is such that we can run even though we go to our office places or businesses?
Great question, Jide. Yeah, you don't need to take days off, but you do need to invest. You need to invest. Like if you typically wake up at 6 a.m., you probably want to wake up at 5. All right, so you need to invest some time to watch the lecture, which will be there waiting for you as you're waking up. And then maybe another 15, 20 minutes to think through and fill the worksheet. Then in the evening, it's usually from 8 p.m. So you should have been back from work and got a chance to have your dinner and all that. And then thirdly, there is replay. Okay, so the replay would always be there. For you to catch up, maybe during break or something. No, but you don't need to. Yeah, and some of the people who went through it are also on this call. They didn't need to take 5 days off work. Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, my name is Eric. I'm from Imo State. I'm joining this program from Canada, and today is my first time, so I really love what you guys are doing. So I just want to know how I can be part of this family. Maybe if you guys have any WhatsApp group, so that I can maybe let ask questions, know how to make them fully. So I don't have much to say, but I just wanted to know, of course, like I said earlier, today is just my first time, and I know I joined it late. So, but I just want to know how I can belong and to carry that along so I can know what to get. Thank you.
All right. Okay. I think I heard you're probably Henry or something. All right. So joining from Canada. Yes, there's a WhatsApp group. All right. We have just a few more minutes. So in the chat, please tell us what was your aha moment. Okay. Lanre said, find your true identity. Pat says, refuse to be trapped in the metrics. Okay. You mentioned unpacking how to find your identity. Please, is this part of the financial challenge or another program? Yes, financial fitness challenge would add it to this one. All right. Okay, so at this juncture, I want to thank all of you for spending this this time. And so I wish you all well. Please extend the lessons that you have picked up this night to your friends, to your family members. People are going through a lot of things, and I hope that these ideas would go a long way in helping a lot of people. So share it. We will also put the replay on YouTube. Feel free to share it with people. And then starting this evening, I would like to hear that maybe you share it with your spouse, share the ideas with your spouse, with your children. Let's all be strong because this will come and go. So with that, I want to thank all of you for spending the evening with me. And I wish you all very, very well. And until we meet again, I just bye from me for now.